Welcome. We'll go ahead and call to order this regular session of the Auburn City Council for September 28th, 2020. I will ask the clerk to please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo.
Present.
Amara.
Yes, present.
Mackey. Here. Stokely.
Here.
And Mayor Berlant.
And I am here as well. Thank you very much, Amy. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody, as we posted this meeting, we are accepting still public comments for any items on the agenda. You can still send us an email at publiccomment@auburn.ca.gov. Our city clerk is very good at multitasking, and we'll keep checking that email throughout the meeting. So we did post the telephone number for phone messages and this email with the posting of the meeting announcement. So with that, thank you, Amy, for posting that. And so next I'll go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item here is mayor's accommodations, acknowledgements, and announcements. I don't have any accommodations or proclamations this evening, but I will just take an opportunity before we kick off the meeting just to acknowledge what our fellow residents in Northern California are dealing with tonight. There's well over 60,000 people evacuated from fires throughout the North Bay in Northern California. I know we had a very good detailed fire briefing and update from our chief at our last meeting, but I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that California is still here almost 45 days, been in a heightened level of fire activity. And so it is definitely all around us. Fortunately, here in Auburn and in Placer County, we have to this point not seen significant fires, but that could change at any moment. And so I'm appreciative of our fire department and the staffing. We have been under a red flag warning for critical fire weather. That red flag warning is expected to end later tonight. Also just want to take an opportunity to thank our fire chief and our fire department who posted our new red flags that are at each of our fire stations as well as in front of City Hall. I know myself and the fire chief and the Fire Safe Council, we will be working on expanding that program under the chief's guidance as was in the department's strategic WUI plan. And so I look forward to figuring out how we can actually get flags for any neighborhood and every neighborhood that wants it, because at least my vision, and I think the fire chief's vision, and maybe many of you's vision, would be that on these heightened fire days, we have these red flag warnings, red flags posted all across town to just remind us all of that heightened level of fire danger. So just wanted to mention that and acknowledge that at the beginning here. So thank you for listening. We'll go ahead and move to agenda approval. This is the time set aside for council members and or the public to ask for the removal, postponement, or a change to the listed sequence of an agenda item. The agenda will be approved by a roll call of the council. So I will start to see if there's any council members that would like to change any item on the agenda. City Clerk, any requests from the public?
Not for this item, no.
Okay, with that, is there a motion for the agenda approval?
I move we approve the agenda as posted.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. If the clerk would please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Amara.
Yes.
Mackey.
Aye.
Stokely.
Yes.
And Mayor Berlant.
Aye. Okay, the agenda stands. Consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless persons request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and separate action. Any items removed will then be considered after the motion to approve the consent calendar. I will be moving item number 2. Yeah, I'll be removing item number 2 for a brief public comment. Any council members would like to remove any other items? Okay, not hearing any. I'll ask the clerk, is there anybody who has asked for any of these items to be removed from the public?
Only item number 2.
Okay, with that, I will accept a motion for the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar minus item number 2.
I'll second.
Okay,
Sorry, Alex.
if the clerk will please take the roll for items 1 and 3.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Stokely,
Yes.
and Mayor Berland.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So our first item here that we've removed is item 2, the Auburn Municipal Airport Capital Improvement Plan Update 2021-2027. Appreciated the update. I asked, well, I should say I asked, the city clerk asked that we pull this item because we did receive public comment. But before we take public comment, I just wanted to turn to the council to see if there were any questions or any items that any of you had related to this item before we move to public comment on it.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I didn't really have a question, but I just wanted to, for the purposes of the public, especially since the item has been removed. But this really is just an offshoot from our comprehensive master plan for the airport, which I understand was adopted by the council in 2008. So it was before my time. And that we did have a lot of input from the various airport users and organizations out there. And that this is really the phase 1 of the implementation plan that's coming before us. So just for the purposes of the public, this isn't something that we've done, inside a box. This is a part of an overall comprehensive plan that we did obtain stakeholder input for. So just to make that statement on the record since we took it off.
Yeah, no, appreciate that very much. Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll go ahead and turn it to the city clerk for the public comment we received on this item.
I do that every time. I'm sorry. I need to share this with sound because it is a voicemail. Hold on just a moment.
This message is a public comment for tonight's City Council meeting to be read during the Airport Capital Improvement presentation by Chief Spencer. My name is Mac McElroy. I'm with the Auburn Aviation Association and I chair the Airport Advisory Committee. My comment is not really about the ACP. It's more of a compliment to Chief Spencer and his battalion chiefs, Rob, John, and Tony, for all that they have done for the airport since taking over. Their hard work and focus on making this important asset to the city even better has not gone unnoticed and is very much appreciated. Thank you.
And that is all for public comment for this item.
Great, thank you. That's obviously the comments that we like to hear, acknowledging the hard work of our fire department. And I don't see the chief is, oh, I'm looking in the wrong section. Sorry, Amy, I just took control. I just quickly added Dave to the meeting. He may not know that, but just so that we could, Amy's giving me control, so I might as well use it when I can. Dave, if you are able to join us, I just wanted to bring you into the meeting and take an opportunity to thank you and your battalion chiefs.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me at this point?
Yep, we can hear you, just can't see you.
All right, fair enough. I don't have any video, but I'd like to express my gratitude for the acknowledgement and appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Dave, appreciate it.
And Mr. Mayor, as the liaison to the airport folks, I have heard that time and time again, how much they do appreciate the chief and our battalion chiefs and all the work they're doing out there. Every time we have a AAA or the 5AC meeting, there's a comment to that effect. So really, thank you very much, Chief. And they notice. They're very appreciative, and as are we. So thank you.
Mr.
You've
Mayor,
got a lot on your plate,
make a motion.
especially during fire season.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Spokley, go ahead.
I'd just like to make a motion to authorize the fire chief to submit the Auburn Municipal Airport Capital Improvement Plan to the FAA.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and ask the clerk to please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Stokely,
Yes.
and Mayor Berlant.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much, Chief. Moving on to item number 4, our public comment. I'll start with the council, see if there's any public comment from the council. Yep, Councilwoman Downing Calvillo, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge that over the weekend, we had the Home Improvement Open Air Market, which was at the fairgrounds. And really, it was the first of its kind during this COVID pandemic that we're in. Auburn was produced by Auburn Home Shows. It was a much smaller version of that. It was an open air market. I spoke with Lonnie today. She said she had about 4,000 people, give or take, over the 3 days. She said that the vendors were incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to be there and to have that interaction with customers. I had spent quite a bit of time out there during the duration of the market and saw people wearing masks. People were socially distanced. People were enjoying themselves. They were just grateful to be outside. And the businesses, we had several Auburn businesses that were there. I spoke with them. They said people were in great moods and purchasing things. Got to meet Larry, the Angora sheep. That was a lot of fun. But it really was a testament to our businesses. And I'm really proud that Lonnie was able to put on the Home Improvement Open Air Market. She said that Supervisor Jim Holmes was instrumental in getting the appropriate approvals for that. And really it paves the way for similar activities. I know that we have the Mandarin Market that's on its way too in November. So it just shows that we can be safe and we can be open and people can enjoy themselves. And it was great. Again, there were a lot of people that were from Auburn that attended. I asked people where they were from, but there were people from Marysville and Vacaville and Fairfield. So it was really well attended and great to have people come up and visit our community and to purchase items from our businesses and just be able to get outside. So just wanted to make that known under public comment, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you for acknowledging that. And I agree that it was great to see an event that is, put on here locally by Auburn, run locally here in Auburn, be able to be successful even with all these restrictions. So thank you for bringing that.
Yeah.
Any other comments from the council? Councilmember Spokley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate, I mean, to have the event held was incredible. There was lots of traffic out there, lots of people out there. I want to thank Lonnie and her staff for persevering and putting this event on. We need to get back this semblance of normalcy, and I think that this event, along with other events like this, are how we do that. So thank you, Lonnie. Well done. Thank you, Supervisor Holmes, for helping us get this done, and very much appreciate the event.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Amara, go ahead.
I'll chime in on businesses in general. I do want to say that throughout the weekend, I've been around town, and I'm sure all of you have, and I'm pleased to say that even though stores are open inside, people are still dining outside, and it's vibrant, and I'm very excited about this new, especially, not to compare the two, downtown and Old Town, but downtown seems to have a lot of vibrancy there. Maybe it's because I noticed because there's more activity on the streets. But in any case, I'm pleased that people are still outdoors, and I think that's a very safe way to proceed in any case. So I'm happy that we're all very supportive of that as well.
Great, thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, not seeing any. I'll go ahead and turn it to the city clerk to see if there's any public comment.
Sure, we received 4 written comments and 1 voicemail for general public comment. So I will show that now. Let me just double check really quick that I have the sound on for that one. I do. Okay.
Yes, Mike Holmes here. Just one quick comment. While most of the country is mourning the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I note that the flags at the historic courthouse in Auburn are at half-staff and other county facilities as well. And at the Auburn post office, flags are at half-staff. And the two staffed fire stations for the city of Auburn are at half-staff. But the flags in front of City Hall are still not at half-staff. And I'm just curious as to why that hasn't been done, if that was an oversight or a conscious decision. So thank you for the opportunity to make my
That
comment.
completes public comment.
Thanks, bye.
Great, thank you very much. And I will note that staff have acknowledged that it was absolutely an oversight that all the other flags the city has were lowered appropriately and City Hall's was not. And so that has been noted, and I know we will all strive to do better the next time that is needed. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Moving on from public comment to council business item number 5. This is the authorization to accept funds from the Middle Fork, the American River Hydroelectric Project, PFP. So I will turn it over to the chief.
All right, there we go. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. For the record, Dave Spencer, your fire chief. Tonight, the item before you is the acceptance of a grant that's provided to us from the Middle Fork Hydroelectric Project. This grant is in the amount of $45,900 and is designed to handle an area in the Aolia Heights area. And I'll ask Amy if she'd be willing to allow me to share my screen with you at this moment.
Yes, it should be set up for you.
Okay. So, okay, so I can't really see on my side. Are you able to see my screen?
No, not yet, Dave.
No. Okay. Let's see. And so, Amy, I'll ask for a little bit of help. Am I going to the wrong area?
Share screen, green button, and then find your document.
There we go. Okay. How about that time?
Coming up, Dave.
Coming up.
There we go.
Perfect.
All right, very good. Okay, apologize for the technical difficulty. I will take the opportunity to tell you that this is a second grant that we received from the Middle Fork project. So this happens to be the same amount and is actually the full amount allocated twice a year. This is unusual for us because generally speaking, that grant funding is split between a couple of different agencies. So for us to get both of those grants in full funding is unusual. The area that we're treating is designated as this red section here outlined and is approximately 10 acres around the Aolia Heights area. The significance of this area is that previously this private area was cleared by the neighborhood approximately 2 months ago. And this other yellow area is designated by these hash lines are actually the Auburn Shaded Fuel Break. The Auburn Shaded Fuel Break is moving into phase 2, and the Resource Conservation District awarded the contract to begin on August 1st. So what that will do is allow us to not only capitalize on the private funding that was done by the neighborhood, but also capture the additional barrier that's provided by the Auburn Shaded Fuel Break as illustrated here. This gives us a nice barrier for this community, and just another very vulnerable section of the city, or an entry point, if we were to have a significant incident. I will take the time to point you on to this area where my cursor is, and actually what I'll do is I'll take my highlighter, and I'm just going to draw a line around this area here, which is the Borland Avenue and Highway 49 section. We recently used some additional funding to be able to clear out approximately 10 acres in that area. During the course of that process, we were able to identify several homeless camps, as well as some illegal activity, and we're able to work in partnership with our law partners from Auburn PD and clear that out. And so you can see for this entire area, we have a nice barrier of protection for the city, and I couldn't be more pleased with how we're moving forward with this. Tonight, procedurally, what my ask is from you in this body is to accept the funds. By accepting the funds, then I can move forward and actually bid the projects with contractors. The typical contractor bid comes anywhere between $3,500 per acre, as high as $5,000 per acre. So I don't have the actual cost of a particular project until we go to bid. As you know, this particular allotted dollars is above the threshold. And so if we end up awarding the entire contract to a single bidder, then I'll be bringing that forward to you for your approval and your wishes as we move forward. So with that, I will happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. I'm going to start with Councilmember Spokely, who has raised his hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave, you took the map down and appreciate the report, but there was an area between the red area and what looked like to be the private property owners in this, yeah, right where your note is, it says proposed project approximately 10 acres.
Correct.
Is there a gap in that, or what's happening in between the red defined area and the properties just to the north?
So if I understand you correctly, I'm going to use my cursor.
Please.
And see if I can't draw a line. Are you referring to this area here?
No. So the proposed project area, 10 acres, right where that arrowhead is.
Okay.
Right to the north of that is areas that don't seem to be defined. Is that a part of your treatment area, or? So
I apologize. I think I understand your question that so I highlighted this area from Borland and Highway 49 down. You're asking further above this.
Right there. Yes, right there where your cursor is.
Yes. So those are potentially areas that we can get to based on the contractor's bid. This is a rough line that we've drawn to give a scope of work, and whatever the contractor's bid comes in, we'll be able to move further. The theory is that the closer we get to 49 and the Auburn Shaded Fuel Break, then should we have an ignition in this area, it's a relatively small area as long as we have this area covered. And so typically we'd be able to handle something in this small type of area. It's just we don't want a significant run from the topography low all the way up the hill. But to answer your question more thoroughly, if the contractor's bid comes in low enough, we'll be able to expand this line up to this property line here. Hope that answers your question.
it educates my question. I just want to, you know, I'm not a fire professional, so I'm going to defer to you and our mayor. But if we're kind of gapping an area here that's closer to homes, and maybe there's not homes right in that vicinity, seems like we ought to maybe focus on the areas that are most closest to our homes. But again, I'll leave that to the professionals. I guess the follow-up question I have is, some of these areas that you've kind of highlighted appear to be private property owners, as we get in the Borland area, and maybe some of the parcels that are off of either Highway 49 or the Aeolia area. But are we, you know, we're doing the same kind of enforcement on clearing undergrowth and defensive spacing that we're doing here? Well, same situation that we're doing on our properties within this, you know, in the Roby Point area, for example, that we're doing over here. There's a lot of areas that appear to be kind of vacant. And I'm just looking at the map here, that appear to be vacant parcels that seem to be fairly heavily wooded. I know they're very steep in driving the area. How are we enforcing undergrowth clearing and thinning and those sorts of things in these areas? Is that something that our fire department and your forces are able to enforce and ensure is occurring out there?
Absolutely, we are able to enforce based on city codes and ordinances that a private parcel that is greater than 1 acre has 100-foot clearance around their property. To maybe dive into the weeds a little bit, no pun intended, and that is to say that my position is to look at the highest risk of fire spread that would enter into our infrastructure and into our community and be a home-to-home ignition. So that being said, that has to do with the joining of topography and fuels. And when I identify those areas, this is one of them. Roby Point is another, down in the south end of Auburn, near Eagle's Nest, and some of those areas are also similar in nature. That is my highest priorities. And so we could certainly tell these property owners to clear that 100-foot around their parcels, and we continue to do so. Don't get me wrong, we're enforcing regularly. My position is that we have grant funding that we can take advantage of, that will give us kind of a head start, if you will. And what that does is allows us to go back next year to say to the property owner, we've taken advantage of this grant funding and we expect you to maintain it. And so most of the property owners that I've had direct conversation with are very much appreciative and certainly on board with what we're trying to do. So to your point, I think the question begs that, are there areas that we could use this funding in a more appropriate way? And I guess what I would say to you is that this is what we're trying to identify, is where's the highest risk? Because as you know, we are in record the fire environment this year. And so I feel a tremendous amount of pressure to get this work done so that we have a layer of protection in these highest risk areas. And then at that point, we can spin around and continue our maintenance and enforcement with these various property owners. Hope that clears it up.
No, I appreciate the response, and I understand what your goals are and your highest priority areas of protection are. I guess I'll try to redefine my question, and then I don't necessarily need a response, but I want to just make sure that that's the direction that the city's heading. If I'm a property owner and I own a parcel that's immediately adjacent to Highway 49 coming up out of the canyon, and I'm not in the red area, but I'm in the kind of highlighted area that you've defined, and I'm very steep, very wooded, I want to make sure that the city's doing whatever the city can do to ensure that private property owners are responsibly taking care of their fire risk. As I know we're doing in other areas of the city, but I'm seeing areas that I believe to be privately owned parcels that I know are very steep, very wooded, that are outside of your little red area, and maybe following Highway 49 as a guide going north. There's maybe no parcels there, Chief, but there's still fire risks for all of the homes that are above them. And I want to make sure that we're following up with those property owners. I don't want the city to have to get grants to make a property owner clear their property, because that's a property owner responsibility. And I own a vacant parcel. I clear my parcel regularly. And I know it's my responsibility as a property owner to do that. I want to make sure that the grant dollars are, so that said, because that is important to me, this 10-acre parcel that you're identifying, Chief, who owns that parcel? Is that a city-owned parcel? I don't think so. I think it's sort of out of the city. Who owns that parcel?
I believe the bulk of this parcel is owned by Placer Land Trust.
Why isn't Placer Land Trust doing the clearing that needs to be done? Why would we be spending grant dollars to clear their property?
That's an excellent question. Certainly, we put a tremendous amount of pressure on Placer Land Trust. In our conversation, trying to enforce the process, they've given us a lot of different information as to why they've not been able to accomplish their goals. And to my point earlier, as I feel the tremendous pressure in the environment that we're in, I'm of the position that this is one of our highest risks. We're going to do the work, and then we're going to come back and circle back with those conversations and have some pretty earnest effort on a go forward. I think what I would quantify this with is that there is throughout this city a tremendous number of areas that are overgrown and have been neglected by various property owners or caretakers. And so with that, it is the only way that I can justify the process that we're moving through is take the highest risk and move toward the lowest risk. And so I know it's not necessarily ideal. We're trying to change a culture in this community that every property owner manage their parcel. And so that's our effort, and we're doing the best we can.
So Chief, thank you for your comments. If this truly is a county-owned parcel, and I know Placer Land Trust is an entity, but I believe they're the same as the county, at least in my mind. If we've got a parcel like you've identified here, that's immediately adjacent to the city of Auburn and our residents, and they're not maintaining their property, that needs to be brought forward to us so we can aggressively talk with our partners to fix this. I think we have this situation in lots of different areas along our kind of exposed southern interface with the wild urban interface. I don't think I said that right, but this is the thing that kind of drives me a little bit crazy, because as a private property owner, I spend lots of money annually to clear my private land inside the city limits, but our neighbors, and some of them may be county entities, are not doing the same thing, and they're putting our residents immediately adjacent to them at great risk. So I've talked enough about this. If you'd like to talk to me more about my concerns, Chief, please feel free to call me. We can chat about this. unresponsive property owners who neglect to maintain their property within the city limits need to be dealt with aggressively, in my opinion. And similarly, adjacent property owners within the county limits who neglect to maintain their property equally need to be maintained and dealt with, I feel, aggressively. And I get it, they're outside our jurisdiction, but if we're talking about a parcel where your little arrow is, that's a proposed 10-acre work that's controlled by the county or a county entity, if that's not being addressed, it needs to be addressed immediately. So I'll stop my comments there, and I should have been doing questions, so I apologize, Mr. Mayor, but thank you for the opportunity.
It's all right. Thank you, Councilmember Spokley. I think the fire chief can follow back up, because I do think Placer Land Trust is heavily involved in doing fire mitigation work as well and coordinating that. So maybe, Dave, we put you a little bit on the spot tonight, but it would be helpful to come back and just report back to us, because Placer Land Trust not only owns the Aolia Preserve, but they have the Stagecoach Preserve just to the north of this. But I do know they do fuel reduction work. So I think some of the questions do deserve some follow through in closing the loop on a response. So thank you. I can't see everybody else. There we go. Okay, I can see Councilwoman Amar's hand, so I will start with Councilwoman Amar here. And you are muted. There you go.
I was muted. I call him Mayor Spencer. Thank you, Chief Spencer, for your report. Well, I'm going to have to answer to the South Auburn people. And I heard your explanation that you're looking at high risk. You know, and I do agree that's an area that should be cleared. Obviously, the canyon's right there. I think they had the grant a couple of years ago, did you say? Is that correct? They received a grant a couple of years ago, I believe. And I don't know if it was the same type of grant, but in any case, I'll just go on. South Auburn, I'm talking Eagles Nest, Riverview, up from Cardiac. You know, there's hundreds of homes there. The Falcons Point's homes, and they're newer homes, which they're a little spaced closer together than the older homes that are down over there near the canyon in Neolia. And it'd be nice if, you know, we could take a look at South Auburn, Riverview, Eagles Nest area as well, because that Cardiac is a steep area. And if a fire were to go there, there's been no clearing, and again, ARD did just 100 feet down, but again, no one has followed up to take down the trees, the dead trees. It was just non-mechanical, which they did a great job, but there is a lot of thicket below too. That, as I said, I think at the last meeting, there was someone who was out here, but I just don't know the status of it, to clear down to Placer County Water, which would help this area. So I just would like your input with regard to, you know, did you look at both areas in deciding to have it over there? You feel that that's the most critical need at this time? Chief Spencer?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Councilwoman Amara. To be specific to your answer, we're currently working in the Eagles Nest area and working downhill toward the river. And that will be a significant project. That was delayed because the contractor that we chose for that area had been committed to another project. So that just started up just this last week. So you'll see significant effort. In addition, we did some work adjacent to that about 2 months ago. And so we're tying those two projects together. And again, the overarching goal is to try to reach as much maximum width of protection as we can. And so they're phased projects. And so I'll also mention that when we have this inclement weather and high fire danger, we're pulling off the contractors and delaying the process. And so I certainly appreciate the patience with that, but we're continuing to move forward, and we'll look for every opportunity to continue to improve that, both on our public land, such as the BOR, as well as private land, and try to draw those two together. And the example would be my efforts are trying to match the effort that's done on the Auburn Shaded Fuel Break and then move up toward the city on private parcels to tie those two together. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yes, thank you, yes. So you're trying to create, what do you call that?
Well, it's essentially a fuel break where there is less fuel to ignite and an easier place in which our firefighters can gain control, slow the spread of the fire, and really have a successful outcome.
So if there's an area above, then it's more manageable because there's more of a break there.
Yeah, so when we talk about fire behavior, just briefly, what I'll tell you is that what concerns me is when there's a continuous fuel bed that runs up the topography in an uphill direction, meaning that it is in alignment with the topography and then the uphill winds. And that's what really concerns me. But if we can create a barrier or a place where there is limited fuel, somewhere in that process, that will slow the spread. And even if there is additional fuel beyond that, that won't get that tremendous growth or spread in those critical rates of spread and allow us to be able to tackle those much easier. And so that's the theory behind it. I mean, ideally, we want to eliminate it all. But in this case, we're just trying to start with a starting place at this point, and then we'll continue to work improvement year over year as we go on.
And you said you were going out for bid. How many bids will you be looking at?
Well, we'll get a minimum of 3 bids. And so, you know, every month changes the amount of contractors that are available based on the various projects that are throughout the region. And so we're kind of at the limit of what contractors are available to us. And so we'll just look for someone that can do the best job for us, that's effective, and we'll get it done.
And will it be mechanical, non-mechanical, or a mixture, or it depends on the contractor?
Yeah, so generally speaking, in these difficult to access areas, and depending on the types of fuels, we rely on the contractor to make the recommendation as to what kind of tools, whether they're using masticators or whether they're doing hand thinning, that kind of thing. And so, you know, we're relying on them to be able to give us the information that they need based on the types of fuels that we're looking at.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilwoman Amara. Other questions? Councilwoman Mackey, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. This was a nice surprise, another grant from the Middle Fork Project. So I appreciate all your efforts and hard work on getting grants for these projects. I guess I'm a little dumbfounded. Thank you, Matt, for asking the question of whose property that is. I mean, Placer Land Trust is one of the richest nonprofits. They have 11,400 acres. I was just reading on their website. Every year on Big Day of Giving, they're always the top nonprofit out of the region that gets money. And so I'm a little shocked that they're not maintaining their land. So I understand what you're doing, and I appreciate it. And this is nothing about what you're doing, because you're just trying to keep us safe, and that's what you have to do. But I agree with Matt that we need to go to them and say, hey, look what we did for your land. Now you need to, you know, pay us. So, I mean, I wouldn't hesitate because of the fact that they are quite a wealthy organization, in my opinion. Also, the down below the bike park and the ARD, didn't we do that work along there? I mean, I saw fire trucks and our firefighters doing the work down there. So that was us doing that cleanup down there, not ARD, right?
Yes, ma'am. Some work done by the ARD, as I understand it. I don't have an exact map or reference to what that was, but I think the area that you're referring to certainly was our firefighters.
Yeah, good. And I was going to ask the same question Sandy asked about how many contractors, how many bids do you usually get? So I'm happy that you try to get at least 3 bids or more the merrier.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Dave, for all your hard work.
Carol, just to answer, ARD did, they do up to the road, up to Maidu, is it Maidu?
Yeah, but further down Maidu, the truck, I saw the firefighters right there on right up to the road too.
The one that goes in, is it Riverview that goes in front of?
Oh, the bumpy road.
The bumpy road, yes.
Right, yeah. Thank you, Sandy.
Councilwoman Donna Calpio.
Yes, thank you very much. I just also wanted to echo the comments that Councilman Spokley had made. And I too, like both Matt and Cheryl, I'm surprised that Placer Land Trust is the property owner there. And I'm sure that we can get them to move forward with protecting the property. That is their charge, really. And so I am surprised, but I'm sure that we will take care of it. Thank you very much, Chief. I applaud your efforts to get a second grant from the watershed project. So really appreciate that very much and look forward to seeing some additional movement on this field break. So there's been a number of questions already asked. So I don't really have any other questions. Just wanted to thank you very much and echo my agreement with Councilman Spokley on this as well. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And I'll just end here with a couple comments. One is, Chief, I appreciate what you've said. I think that a lot of good points here. And I really actually appreciate all of our council members engaging in this because we're only doing 10 acres and we really should be talking about hundreds of acres of project work. And so, we obviously need more funding to have this be stable. One of the concerns that I have is that, it's one thing for us to go in and do this work. It's another to maintain it. So it's great that we're doing all this work right now, but fuel breaks, as you know, Chief, need to be updated at least every 3 to 5 years minimum. And so what is our project? I know that Councilwoman Amara's thoughts of goats is always a great one of how do we maintain it, but we really don't have a stable funding source. And this isn't just a plug for the measure that is on the ballot for homeowners to make a decision on whether or not they want to, fund this type of work. But I do think making sure that we're balancing what's the responsibility of our property owners and holding them accountable, but with also doing projects that are going to be on private property that are for the better good of the community. And in, sometimes chasing them. I agree if this is Placer Land Trust, just pulling up the map, it looks like it's multiple landowners. It may not all be Placer Land Trust. So, that also may take into account. But I just want to tell everybody one other item. Last week, I had the opportunity to go to Fresno County to the Creek Fire up to Shaver Lake, where probably out of anywhere in the state, Shaver Lake area has had the most fuel breaks. And it's a coordinated effort. The Forest Service, CAL FIRE, the Fire Safe Council, and SoCal Edison, who is a huge property owner in Shaver Lake, they own really the lake, has done so much work. And so that fire burned right through many of those communities, but those fuel breaks really played a huge factor in reducing the severity of the fires. Homes were still burned, and I think that we need to make sure we're all on the understanding that putting these fuel breaks in and doing this work you're doing doesn't necessarily save homes automatically. If you look at the fires, and I was just looking at an update, at least 80 homes were destroyed last night in Santa Rosa. That wasn't destroyed because the fire burned up to it. It wasn't like if a fuel break was in place, it would have stopped the fire from burning those homes. Those homes burned because the embers traveled a mile ahead of it. And so these fuel breaks are critical, especially, Chief, one thing that looking at the map, it looks like, Highway 49 runs right under there. And so to some of the questions about how you prioritize, obviously, highways are where a huge amount of vehicle traffic flows. It makes sense for us to be doing these type of projects just above that road, because if it starts right off the roadway, that fuel break could slow down the severity of the fire, could actually stop it. But just want to make sure that we're not thinking that one giant fuel break around Auburn is going to help us completely, because if it's on the other side of the river, those embers are going to come to us. Those embers are going to destroy homes. And so there's some reality there as well. But I too appreciate the update on this. I know that we, kind of look at this at least once a year. And so having it twice is fantastic. But I do look forward to kind of diving in a little bit further into what we're doing to really make sure homeowners, property owners, I should say, are being held accountable. What we're doing partnership wise with the Placer Land Trust, because I don't want to completely paint them tonight as being mismanaging their land, but we need to hear from them what's their plan to do that and how are they going to maintain it. So look forward to a short report out to us on some of the questions the council has. Councilmember Spokley, I think you had a follow-up question, so I'll turn it back over to you and then see if there's any public comment on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're doing comments. I just wanted to make sure I followed up with a thank you to Chief Spencer for your efforts. Obviously, any grant funds we can get to help protect our city are important to us. I just want to make sure that if there's an underlying property owner who might be responsible for where we're spending our grant dollars, that we pursue that. Thank you again, Chief, for all of your work. Appreciate it very much. You're doing a fantastic job. Keep up the great work.
Did anybody else have any other comments? I know we kind of did embed both, so just want to loop back. Sorry, Councilmember Spokley, thank you for following our procedures but being the only one tonight, including myself, that did. So thank you. With that, I will go ahead and turn it to the city clerk to see if there's any public comment on this item.
There is no public comment for this item.
Okay, with that, I'll bring it back to the council for motion.
I'll move to authorize the acceptance of funds from the Middle Fork American River Hydroelectric Project in the amount of $49,500.
I'll second.
Okay, if the clerk will please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Amara.
Yes.
Mackey.
Aye.
Spokley.
Yes.
And Mayor Berlant.
And I am a strong aye. Thank you very much, Chief, for the presentation. Thank you for your work. Look forward to hearing back on some of those questions. Moving on to item number 6 now, our Police Chiefs Community Advisory Council. I think we'll swap out chiefs. And Chief Canan, good evening, welcome. There
Good
you are.
evening, Mayor Berlant, council members, Ryan Canan, your Chief of Police. I'm excited tonight to present on a future program for the police department and our community. Tonight's presentation is just an overview of what's going to be named as the Police Chiefs Community Advisory Council. So I'm very excited about being able to let everybody know about this and kind of give a high level concept of it. I'm going to share my screen with everybody as I work through that. Does everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you. So again, I'm very excited to talk about the Community Advisory Council. So if council and our viewers are not aware, but in 2015, former President Barack Obama put together a President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. And a couple of things that came out of that in 2015 are still very relevant to today. They identified 6 pillars to address issues between our communities and the police departments. Those 6 pillars were building trust and legitimacy, policy and oversight, technology and social media, community policing and crime reduction, training and education, and officer wellness and safety. The pillar that we're really going to highlight tonight is the community policing and crime reduction component to it. And that was pillar 4. So they focused on the community engagement and community policing on really how important it is to hear and listen to the communities that we're serving, understand that every community is different, and to take that engagement and take those programs and ideas and start building on those. And I know, for my staff, anytime we have the opportunity to talk to our community members, it's great. We're able to, just educate people a little bit more on what it is that we're doing. And, no more now than ever can we continue to do that. Unfortunately, we constantly see issues between communities and police. For a lot of it is because of lack of trust and understanding between the two. not knowing and not understanding the laws, the legislation, and those other things that dictate how we do our job does kind of erode that trust, along with what we see on social media and mainstream media. So we saw those things with the task force on 21st century policing, and those are some of the things that we're going to highlight with what we're doing with community policing. There's 3 elements to community policing, as I've noticed there. Was partnerships with our community is a big part of it, and those are programs, other government agencies, community members and groups such as service clubs, nonprofits, and service providers. As you see below, our coalition with the Auburn and Lincoln Youth, things like Stand Up Plaster. Those are all partnerships that help us do our job better. The police department is obviously a third part of that. And it's our philosophies, it's our strategies, it's how we do our job, it's how we engage with our community members. It's our belief in community policing as a philosophy, and also, as I have there, is the problem solving and problem-oriented policing. Some of the things that go back to the police department side of it is something that we just got recently, which was our new CAD RMS system, but being able to access this data and provide it to our community is important. And so they see what's going on. In the near future, have a presentation on our kind of an application that builds on our CAD program. It's called Citizen RIMS, which allows the community to see what's going on right from their phones, their desktops, their laptops. And also, the quality of data will be better. Obviously, it's going to take us time to build that data up in our CAD system, but it's going to be much more robust than it has been historically. Here are some examples of our ongoing efforts and our partnerships. The Citizens Academies that have been going on. We typically put on 1 academy a year. This year, unfortunately, we had to suspend it during COVID, but we're going to get it kicked off again. Our town hall meetings. We've done several town hall meetings since I've been here, typically related to traffic issues throughout the community. Regional programs, our Coalition for Auburn and Lincoln Youth, like I mentioned, Callie, our school resource officer at Placer High School are examples, and our community action team is a big concept in the task force for 21st century policing. And we have our own community action team, which is a partnership with Health and Human Services. It's a partnership with Placer County Probation. And this group in particular also reaches out to the other regional police departments and sheriff's departments to really identify what's going on specifically with homeless at the moment. But they also work with our own city staff. I'll tell you, just as a side note, we met with our regional bus drivers supervisor the other day. And just to hear the work that they're doing to help with the homeless issues within our community is amazing, and they've done a great job. And we're actually including them in some of the work the CAT team is doing. So, and then also there's the upcoming neighborhood officer program. There'll be more information coming with that, but we'll actually start getting officers down to neighborhood levels to address some of these long-term problems going on. But really what I want to talk about today is the Police Chiefs Community Advisory Council. We start talking about why do this now. We have a great community, a great region, very supportive of law enforcement. At this time, I'm not aware of any programs like this in the Placer County area. I do know that Elk Grove has a model. This model is taken from them and a couple of agencies in the state of California. But I don't want to rely just on the good relationship now. I want to be able to build on it. I want to be able to get the community members engaged and be able to have a discussion and build on top of our great relationship. The council concept is to create a way for us to kind of build on these programs. We've done a lot of things. I didn't mention Coffee with a Cop, other ways that we engage with the community. But what we hear is, for that hour and that hour and a half that we're talking to somebody, we hear the concerns, we hear the issues going on, but it doesn't really give us a chance to sit down and brainstorm and come up with ideas on how to address these concerns. It's the same thing. Those aren't a formal process, but this gives us an opportunity as advisory council to put things on paper and to develop solutions for the long term. So it's very important for me that I start getting these engaged community members right there at the table with me. I think a big topic is the members. I can tell you these are the type of people we're looking for, someone who's trustworthy, right? someone who's open-minded, willing to engage in that dialogue that we can all benefit from, not self-serving, but understanding that they're serving the greater good of the community, and they're helping the police department. They're helping me as the chief of police improve our services, whatever those are. Again, the diversification of it is very important to me. We got to be able to balance the interests and the expertise within our community as a whole. I can tell you that I don't want people that are thinking just like me or law enforcement. I want a broad spectrum of community members, and those people are residents or business owners, teachers in our schools, even our youth, high school age, college age kids that are still engaging in our communities, nonprofits and faith-based organizations. Because again, I think that gives us a wide breadth of knowledge and experience and a perspective on things that I certainly don't have. I'm looking to get 10 to 15 members for this program. I think 10 to 15 is a good number because it allows us to have that wide breadth of people. Even though we're a community of just shy of 15,000, we have a lot of expertise. We have people from all walks of life, and I think that's important for us to build the long-term solutions and the programs that will better serve our communities. The interesting part is I picked the 2-year term. I think that gives people enough opportunity to work on projects and build on top of them. So the caveat to that is the first two, or half of the first group would get 1 year and the other half would get 2 years. So we could start that rotation, and we would seeing the change of 5 to 7 people every year. My plan is to get this monthly meetings beginning in January 2021. If for some reason I get enough people quicker, then I'll certainly start it quicker. And then the application process. So there's an application process. It's similar to our volunteer process, although these folks aren't volunteers in the same sense that of our volunteers now. But it will go through, they'll fill out the application, they'll send it to me, we'll make the reviews, and then I could probably anticipate some type of informal interview with those folks, and then the selection. They will go through a volunteer style, very basic background, probably neighborhood checks, some phone calls, fingerprinting, and those types of things. So I can tell you that I know in the established guidelines I have so far, this is not something that, if someone honestly has committed a crime or something else, it's definitely not something that will keep them from being on the panel, but definitely want them to be honest and upfront about that. Again, we start talking about the community policing. This is just one more way for the police department to build on top of our a lot of the programs that we're already doing to better serve our community. But I don't know if we're not catching all parts of our community. I know, over the last several months, heard a lot from a number of our community members, potentially the ones that are underserved by us as well. And, I'm looking to get those parts of our community, the voice with me, be able to have that talk. I found that we can't be the more dangerous alternative to those dangers that are out there. We've seen those dangers as law enforcement professionals, but I want the community to be able to trust and understand that we are here to serve them and provide the highest level of service we can give them. So it's if we can enhance these things and we can build on top of these, it'll be huge. And like I have there as social capital. I've heard a lot of good things from the other agencies that have these types of programs. A number of agencies were very fortunate to have this type of program put in before a lot of the things we dealt with this year. And they actually helped them avoid a lot of the significant issues that were going on that we saw outside of the region. So I think, again, it's that you're not sure how well and what it's exactly doing, but I don't think you can shortchange that social capital that we're building, but also that deposits of goodwill that I tell my staff about all the time. I think the more relationships we have, the more transparent we possibly can be in this profession, the better served we are when it's needed the most. And with that, any questions?
Great, thank you very much. Looking to the council, Councilwoman Dowden Calvillo, and then I'll come to Councilwoman Mackey.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, I don't know if I did have an opportunity to speak with the chief offline. I had some questions I had asked him One was, are there other jurisdictions around us doing this? It sounds like it's Elk Grove, but nowhere else near us. But actually, I really just have comments, so maybe I'll just wait. Sorry.
No worries. Councilwoman Mackey, go ahead.
Just quickly, this sounds like an excellent idea, Chief. I'm really glad that you're putting this together. I think it's going to work. I really do, because we have a very involved community. They want to be involved, and I think this would be a good fit for some people. My question is, more than one term, can they serve?
So we do have that built in. They could serve more than one term. It's at my discretion. I find that, again, if people in general are actually being a positive contributor to the program and helping us and continue to advance it, certainly see a role for them to stay on. At the same time, there's, as things change and evolve, it's nice to get new people, new perspectives.
Right. Yeah. So just one other thing, you mentioned Citizen RIMS.
Yes,
as
ma'am.
in reference to the CAT program. What is that going to be?
So Citizen RIMS is an application to our current CAD and RMS system. So what that'll be is that's actually a program that'll allow some of our data, our crime statistics, our data, vacation signups, reporting concerns. A lot of that stuff will be right there on our website. So the community, instead of having to call us or see what's going on, that information will be right there at their fingertips.
Good idea. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Great. Councilwoman Amara.
I'm sorry, just one quick question. Thank you. What a fantastic idea. Love it. My one question is, do the applicants have to live in the city of Auburn, or can they just be outside the city limits? I didn't see that in your backup information.
Sure. From my belief is that if you're a resident, you should be someone in the city of Auburn. If you're a business owner, obviously you have a business in the city. So I'd like to keep it that focused as much as we can.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Councilmember Smuckley, go ahead.
Just a quick question. I mean, I understand in reading through the staff report that you, Chief, reserve kind of the right to make the final selections of folks. Is there any involvement with the council on determination of the final makeup of this committee, or is it just your selection process, as I think I read in your staff report?
This is separate from the city council and any other committees that are created by the city council. So it's solely under my purview and the purview of the police department. So it does allow me to make that final selection on who can participate in the program.
Great, thank you. I do have comments, follow-up comments. Thank you.
Okay, great. Chief, the only question I had, and this just kind of dovetails off Councilwoman Amara's question about residencyship. What's your thought process, though, as far as our business owners and participation from our businesses in this process as well, since many of our business owners don't actually live within the city?
Sorry if I wasn't clear, but if you have a business in the city, I would argue that you do belong on this type of council. Because again, from a business perspective, it gives me a perspective that I don't have as a business owner. So regardless of where a business owner lives, I would definitely encourage a business owner inside the city of Auburn to participate in this council.
Great, thank you for clarifying that. We'll come back. Well, actually, first, I'll look to the city clerk to see if there's any public comment on this item.
There is not.
Okay, with that, I'll come back for comments. So I'll start with Councilwoman Dowden-Calvillo.
Yes, thank you very much. And again, I did have an opportunity to speak with the chief offline about this, and I appreciate that very much. So I'm very pleased to see that we are going to have an application process for this and encourage individuals to apply that may be interested in addition to the recruitment efforts that you're going to undertake. Overall, I think this is great. It's a very proactive step. Again, you talked about that social capital, and I really truly believe that, because we can establish these relationships now so that we can hopefully avoid any issues or difficulties when things come up in the future. So Kudos to you for coming up with this process. Again, thank you for opening it up for applications, that it'll be on the website. It's my understanding as well. I know that you talked about a preference for folks who had had an opportunity to go through the community awareness program, but that won't be a mandate, but certainly something that you'll look at. So again, I think this is a great thing. It's an additional tool and an opportunity for us to establish new relationships. And I really hope that you get a diversified candidate pool to participate in this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from the council? Yeah, Councilmember Buckley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank again the chief for bringing this forward. I do believe that for a program like this, an initiative like this to be successful, we do need a diverse pool of candidates. If we get, all right-wing folks on this committee, we might not get the results that we're looking for, vice versa. So I do think that it's important to make sure that through the selection process, we get a balance of business owners from all of our districts, as outlined in this program, as well as community members within the city of Auburn. So thank you for bringing this initiative forward. I believe, as I think it was mentioned by Alice, that this is a great program, great initiative. I think it's somewhat proactive, although we do have a few jurisdictions that are doing something like this in this crazy time that we're all dealing with the COVID and social unrest and all of the things we're experiencing in the nation. This is a great step for the city of Auburn. So thank you for bringing this forward, Chief. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. If I can, I'd like to add on what Councilwoman Don Calvillo mentioned and what you were mentioning, Councilmember Spokley, is, I do want that diverse group of people. And so one of those things that were initially part of it was almost a shall have attended the Citizen Awareness Academy or scheduled to. Well, you can see what happens. Even though we've got people scheduled, we've had something interfere and you can't get to it. But I also know that many of those people that go to the Citizens Academy, become our fans and they become ambassadors of us. And if I was just going to make it a shall, I think I do miss a large part of that community that wouldn't necessarily qualify. That could be those people who aren't necessarily our biggest fans and they have a lot of questions. So in our conversation earlier with the Councilwoman, I changed that to highly recommended as opposed to a shall or a mandate. So to that point, I certainly want a diverse group. And I think that's one step to help ensure that. So I hope that answers some of those concerns and questions.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, for that. And I'll just end here with, I'm appreciative as well of you bringing this forward. I think in this time of, civil unrest across our nation and, even in our region, it is critical now more than ever that our police department be connected to the community. And I think that we need to, reflect our community's values. The department needs to reflect, the concerns and the issues, and have a mechanism for residents to feel comfortable and honestly hold our department accountable to what you're doing. All too often, in government, departments are doing things behind closed doors. And while it's great, and while, there's a lot of good things the police department does, people don't always hear about them. And so I think it's important that there be an opportunity for educated conversation, but also to make sure that you and the department are hearing what are those issues, because we talk about them. I assume, like me, the other four send you issues and complaints that we receive. But I think formalizing a process so that you are aware of those issues, but also are able to communicate back and provide education and start to see where there may be trends and concerns and start to figure out how to address them on a broader scale. So I think the timing of this is critical, and I'm appreciative of you bringing this proactively versus our community at civil unrest demanding change. So let's be proactive and appreciate that you are. So with that, Councilwoman Amar, did you have any additional comment?
I'm sorry, it's not a comment. It's, I need to circle back just for 1 second.
Okay.
You know, I'm the liaison for ARD, and ARD many times has issues, and they think they call you. I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to have someone from ARD. I need your input on that, because you know, they're within our city limits, the parks. And
Yes.
I think it might be a good idea to at least reach out and maybe engage them as well.
That's a
Right.
great idea, Sandy. That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will echo that too. I've heard from a number of the ARD employees who
Mhm.
often kind of feel trapped in the middle of how do they let the department know of issues, and like many of our residents, and Chief, I don't mean to beat this issue to death here, but you know, oftentimes people call about what they think is an important call, which it is, but in the priority of what's happening with only having 2 officers, they don't get follow up. And I know you've been really working on that, but I think Councilwoman Mara's point is well taken, because there are a lot of issues at our parks. There's a lot of concern by parents and by ARD employees. So how they interconnect, I don't know. You know, schools would be, I guess, right up there with ARD as well, and maybe thinking about how we include some of these larger stakeholders. So Councilwoman Mara, thank you for bringing that up, and Chief, maybe you can put some thought to that as well. And maybe it's not part of this, maybe there's some flexibility to add these larger stakeholders, but I think I would echo the other 2 council members that I think that is a good stakeholder group to be listening to.
Thank you.
So with that, this was an informational item only, so we will go ahead and move to our report section. And item number 7, the city manager report.
Yeah, hi, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of items. First, as the mayor pointed out, we've been under a red flag warning, and that's facilitated some of the PSPS power shutdowns. One of the things that I think that we're going to do is push both on our social media, city website, and everything. So over the weekend, we were notified of which areas were going to be impacted, and we saw that Auburn was not going to be impacted that way, but it still posed a lot of questions for folks. People can sign up through PG&E to get notifications. People also need to be signed up through Placer Alert. If we knew that we were going to be shut down, we would send something out through Placer Alert to everybody. And then finally, for some of the rolling blackouts with the state, with the California ISO, people can sign up for those. So somewhere we're going to have to come up with a hot button so people can go and sign up for these things. I kind of joke that, should we send something out to tell everybody that everything's okay? And that kind of gets past the idea of having an emergency alert system. You only want the system to go off when there's a problem. So we're going to work on that a little bit. Just for the information of the council, tomorrow I am having my first all staff meeting, and the council members are invited. I want to attend 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. It gives me a chance to talk with members of our team about a wide variety of things that we're working on, and just talk a little philosophy, do a little bit of recognition for some of the things that are going on with the staff. So 4 o'clock tomorrow. And just as an aside, I can tell you, throughout my career, I've worked with a lot of the land conservation organizations, land trusts, and the issue regarding maintenance of properties is something that is literally sending panic through all of them, because this is not, I can just tell you, their model is not weed abatement. It is not fire abatement. The land trusts own millions of acres. And in California here, you have everybody from the Nature Conservancy, Audubon, every single county has some type of a land trust that's out there. And it's a big deal. I think as we look to address some things here in Auburn are the same things that are being addressed everywhere. Where you see areas on fire in Napa, I can tell you so much of that land is owned by Audubon, same over in Santa Rosa. I know those people extremely well. So it's just, there's a lot of issues going on right now. And like I said, there is a certain level of panic that's going through because the land trust model aren't necessarily on fire abatement, at least they haven't. So we'll see where all that goes. And that's my report.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the council for our city manager? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go ahead and move to item number 8, our COVID-19 update. I'll just kick us off with a couple things. We did hold a special session economic recovery workshop last Friday. Some good news, finally, some good news that our numbers across the board are down in Placer County as well as down in Auburn. Well, I think in the last several days, there's been 2 new cases in Auburn. Prior to that, we've gone about 2 weeks with only 3 new cases within the 95603 area code. So we definitely are doing our part to slow the spread. Hospitalizations are down, specifically or especially with Placer County residents. So there's a lot of confusion, and this was an item that we discussed on Friday. There's still a lot of confusion about when we will move to the orange or the moderate tier. Placer County has been meeting the requirements to be in the orange tier now for quite a while. How far that backdates is kind of where it is in question. And you ask different people from the county, you get different answers. That was one of the confusions. The Chamber of Commerce got an update from the county, and it kind of differed from what the Board of Supervisors received and provided to me as well. So working to kind of clarify that. My understanding is that by tomorrow, we should hear more about where we are with hitting the orange tier. The governor today did announce that a number of counties would be downgraded tomorrow. I don't think Placer County is on the downgrade list immediately, but we should find out when that will occur. And from what I was told, but again, I'll just mention that it is different than what the county provided to the Chamber of Commerce's. We could actually be downgraded to the orange tier as early as October 6th. So more to follow. We'll have some additional information. One thing that came out of a meeting a couple weeks ago that we discussed on Friday is the Chamber of Commerce and the city worked very quickly to take actually Councilwoman Dada Calvillo's idea about the billboard in Old Town, and the Chamber of Commerce was able to rearrange the schedule. The city was able to fund. And so up on our city billboard is the Auburn is Open Safely banner, taking advantage of the Highway 50 closure, which they opened it earlier than expected, but still was closed for an extended period of time, working on just providing additional economic development by encouraging people to get off 80 and to come safely into our community. And then just one last item here that I will mention. Businesses started on Friday to receive notification for those that had applied for the Placer Shares program. I know all 5 of us and specifically our city manager as well has been really beating the drum on educating businesses to apply for that Placer Shares program. That's the significant amount of money, several $1 million being handed out to restaurants, businesses, small businesses specifically. So I don't know if when I turn to the city manager, if we've heard yet the exact number of Auburn businesses that had received money, but we're getting a lot in. And then just one last plug on the grant program. The Placer Eats and Drinks program closes on the 30th at midnight. So restaurants and bars have the ability to also receive some financial assistance as well. They just merely need to apply. So just take an opportunity to thank John, who has been really walking the streets, pounding the pavement, getting the word out on top of us, the Chamber of Commerce, our business association. So with that, that's a little quick update from me, and I'll turn it over to John to finish us out.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, just 2 things. Number one, I don't have the exact numbers yet. I know that the Eats and Drinks it technically expires on Wednesday at midnight. So I'll tell you that my focus is, it's a free $1,000 for everybody. So we've been really focusing on getting that out. On the Placer Shares, which is the larger grant program, I think I should know probably by tomorrow afternoon sometime, and I'll pass that out to everybody. And finally, just the focus of the staff, I mentioned this at the workshop on Friday, is looking post-COVID, looking short-term, and then looking long-term on moving past everything. So we have our little subcommittee of the Economic Development Committee. I'm gonna set up a meeting with our little subcommittee to start working on some things. Next week, the EDC will be talking about all this at their meeting. So we're just gonna start working on economic development all post-COVID. And that's my report.
Great, thank you, John. Any questions from the council for John or myself? Yeah, go ahead, Councilwoman Donna Calvillo.
Yes, I just wanted to thank John for really walking the streets and connecting with our businesses and helping them out with regards to our eats and drinks, or the county's eats and drinks, and the Placer Shares as well. I know they appreciate it, seeing you out there, seeing all of us out there. I know we're all out there as ambassadors. So thank you very much, John, and keep up the good work on that end. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Spokely, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm sorry, quick question. John, the city's the county grant program, Eats and Drinks, the cap on those fundings is $1,000. Is that what I understand?
Okay, Eats and Drinks is $1,000, period. The Placer Shares has a little bit of a moving ball up to about $10,000. So there's the Placer Shares is different, and there's a variation on it. But Eats and Drinks, flat 1,000, and then Placer Shares has a different metric on distribution.
So John, I'll follow up with you. I've had an interaction over the weekend with Restaurant Josephine's right across from City Hall that are hopefully opening very soon because their food is absolutely incredible. But the thought there is there might be some city programs that are stalled, and I'm not sure they're city programs. So I'll follow up with you offline, kind of get to the bottom of it. But yeah, as I told them and any other restaurateurs that I encounter, this Placer program is, I don't want to say free money because somebody's paying for it. We'll all be paying for it eventually, but it's money that's available to them in relatively short order, relatively easy to get, not hugely significant, but money nonetheless. So for all of us, keep spreading the word. There's a few days left. Every restaurateur and bar owner in town ought to be getting this money. And to hear that there was only 20% of the restaurants in Placer County that applied in one of my meetings was a little bit frustrating. So thank you again for walking and knocking on doors and making sure people are aware. Appreciate it, John.
Yeah, if I might add one thing, it's pretty easy money. The only rule is that you had to be in business in March. That is one of the rules. So like a new startup couldn't do it, but on the Eats and Drinks program, it doesn't get any easier. If you're open in March, all you have to do is fill out one tax form and you get $1,000.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the council? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you, John, for the update. Appreciate it. We'll go ahead and move to item number 9, our city council committee reports. We did skip this 2 weeks ago, so if anybody has a go back as well, that's fine. I'll just go in order. So I'll start with Councilwoman Mackey.
Thank you, Mayor Berlant. Well, I'm not going to go back that far because I have other things I want to talk about. We had a candidates forum at the State Theater the other night, and I thought it went rather well. All the candidates were there on the stage interacting with one another, and which is a new thing. And then the attendees were by Zoom, and they all called in questions. I mean, they chatted in questions. Some people emailed questions in advance, and we asked the questions. And it was well attended, over 100 people on the webinar. And then since then, we've had 141 people view the YouTube video of the event. So I think that's a, I think that's a pretty good response for a candidates forum. So we do have a engaged community that wants to hear the candidates. There's another one this week, League of Women Voters, the 29th, which is tomorrow night. Yes. And then also, let's see, Pioneer Energy, a lot going on with Pioneer Energy, but I'm going to reserve any questions you might have for them, because Don Eckert is coming to our city council in October to talk about this. El Dorado County and Placerville have reached out to us, and they would like to become Pioneer customers. And there's a lot of positives on this, but of course there's always going to be negatives too. So we really have to weigh it. There's a study being done right now, but we have to find out if the member agencies are on board with this. And since we are a member agency, they will come and talk to us at a city council meeting, the second city council meeting in October. So I just want you to be aware of that, that's going on. Did you have a question, Alice?
Yeah, I was going to say that I do know the Placerville mayor very well, and I was just waiting for him to come and make that request. So I know they had a power shut off over the weekend with no wind, so they're about up to their eyeballs about it. So
yeah, but see, that's not really going to make a difference in the PSPS, except for we have Chuck, and Chuck will work with PG&E, possibly in El Dorado County, but Chuck is only one person, so.
I know.
Can't stretch him too thin. Anyway, also then we had a PCTPA meeting. I know John sent you this slide, the slides from the HDL reports and of the taxes and how they compare to 2020. And they're down about 15% from the second quarter in 2019 to now. But what I thought was interesting was, I thought the most interesting slide was, since the Wayfair law was passed, where Amazon and all the companies have to pay taxes to the entities where people purchase goods online. Since the first quarter of 2019 to the second quarter, it was the sales tax went up 14%. In the second quarter of 2020, they went up almost 30%. So it really is beneficial to us that we are getting paid tax money for people that purchase things online, and it really helps with leveling out some of the losses in the business community that are inevitable, because people are going to shop online no matter what. I thought that was interesting. If you get a chance, look at the slides. There's a lot of interesting information there.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let you know that. That's all I have for now, Mayor Berlant.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mackey. I will note that I've mentioned this to our finance director, that it would be good to get a report on the changes to the tax laws, because if we can, instead of somebody driving to, say, a big warehouse store just outside the city limits, if you can order it online and the city be able to receive the tax dollars, I know that I would appreciate the convenience, and it would go to support our own needs for our police, fire, et cetera. So definitely look forward to that conversation. So thank you.
That'd be great, because that would be another bullet point that we could put in the Think Auburn First message.
Yeah, for sure. So
Thank
again,
you.
it's kind of a question, small businesses may not as much appreciate it, but
Right.
there are conveniences that people take to go to box stores. And so we can focus on small businesses, but if we're not going to address the reality that some people do choose to shop at larger discount type of box stores or online stores, that's us putting our head in the sand. So we really need to, in my opinion, look at both of those and take advantage of educating people, because again, it's more convenient to order online, and if the city can receive some revenue support from them, I know I would change my habits to not going to other communities to spend my hard tax dollars. So anyway,
Sure enough.
that's not an item on tonight's agenda, but someday in the future. So moving on down, Councilwoman Amara, anything to update?
Hi, yes, so we finally got the Sustainability Committee going, and it was very successful in that we were just formed basically the offices. And everybody met and greeted each other, and everybody's very enthusiastic. What a great group of people. And so the chairperson was Rachel Raddell Harris. She's very qualified, an engineer, and it was unanimous. Vice chair was Michael Lemberg. He's an architect and excited about helping out. And the secretary is Glenn Kramer. He's a retired city engineer and for the city of Palo Alto. And the group was beyond enthusiastic, full of ideas, way over my head. I was just very pleased that they have such spirit. Then I went to the ARD meeting, and they basically talked finance pretty much. And then the mosquito vector had a meeting. And lastly, I did also attend the home show, which was, when I went, it was later in the day. It wasn't that crowded, which for me was nice. So anyway, it seemed to be a success though.
Great, thank you very much. Great. Councilwoman Downing-Calvillo.
Yeah, so not too much to report. I did mention, but it was just really quick, but with the Arts Commission, they're expecting that the umbrella installation will start in October. So that was a couple of weeks ago, of course, so hoping that that still will ring true. The Auburn Endurance Capital of the World Committee is working with the Shack on the placement of a new tile to reflect the efforts of, I don't want to name the person yet, but someone who has been very instrumental, a real pioneer in his or her field, and has done some really neat things for Auburn. So the committee is working with Shack to make that a reality, and I'm sure it'll come eventually to us. So that's all that I have to report.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Spokely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick follow-up question on the environmental committee. Those are public hearings, I presume, correct, Sandy?
Yes, they are. Yes, and the next one is scheduled. If you would like to attend, it was posted, and it will be posted for October 29th at 1:30 at the station.
But the first meeting was posted as well. And when was that meeting held? I missed the posting.
The posting was it was September 24th. The meeting was.
Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. I guess on my reports, I think I alluded to the council that there was some potential goings on with SACOG and the members, particularly one of our larger counties. I'm happy to report that the 2020 funding round for the 4 counties, which does not include Placer County, was unanimously approved by the board at the last meeting. The lunar meeting, land use and natural resource committee meeting that I chair, as well as the board meeting, were pretty well focused on making sure that everything is held together and we move forward successfully. And in fact, we did, largely due to the support and work that staff had done to try to make all parties heard and acknowledge their concerns related to the funding round. I think I shared with the group that it's, highly critical for all of us public entities with the challenges that we're facing with the COVID and the economic shutdown, that we have adequate funding for our various programs, primarily circulated through SACOG on transportation, roadway maintenance, those sorts of activities. We had a situation where the 4-county funding round was pretty dramatically updated, I think in a positive fashion to give those local 4 entities a little more control. Again, we're thankful that we have PCTPA, our own entity that distributes our local funds from a transportation, federal transportation and state transportation standpoint. So we're in good shape there. But it was important for us as a member agency to make sure that the overall SACOG board stayed intact and we didn't have any issues with members wanting to leave the organization, which would diminish us federally, state level, and make all of our efforts to get grant funding that much more of a challenge. So I'm happy to report that everybody is held together. Again, unanimous vote for the 2020 funding round from all member jurisdictions. So that's good news. I did attend a couple of meetings related to the Economic Development Committee, EDC, for City of Auburn. John already reported on that, so I don't need to reiterate that. Lastly, I did also sit in or attend the Placer County Economic Development Board meeting this quarter, and a lot of reiteration of the same things that we talk about at the mayor's meetings that we hold every other week on economic development. I was able to give a report on what the city's doing. I did have our city manager attend, as well as the Auburn Chamber Board, Auburn Chamber Executive Director attended the meeting, which was nice. Those meetings come up quick, and there oftentimes isn't a lot of attendance locally, but it was good to see some friendly faces. So not a lot to report there, just mostly COVID updates, little updates on what we're doing locally to help support our businesses. Lots of talk about the food and beverage grant program and how there was limited activity from our restaurateurs and bar owners in this program. Hopefully we're getting the word out. I know as we have already talked about, our city manager, John, has walked and knocked on doors and tried to ensure that people are aware of the program. So for that, that's kind of my wrap up on my reports. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. And I will just round out with a couple items. I mentioned this at our economic workshop on Friday, but I did join the Old Town Business Association for their meeting last week. They had a nice presentation from one of the volunteers on the Measure S campaign related to public safety, public works funding for the city. And so there were a lot of good questions, and it was actually a pretty positive tone at that meeting. And then they also discussed, as we heard also at our meeting on Friday, but those who weren't there, there's a lot of coordination going on with the Downtown Business Association and the Chamber of Commerce. In fact, I noted that it was the first time that I saw a representative from the Auburn Chamber of Commerce at the Old Town Business Association. And so the communication that's going on has been on the rise for a couple of years now. But definitely, as I think we're hearing from, as we are meeting with all the business associations almost weekly, there's obviously this increased coordination with between Old Town and Downtown, but more importantly with the Chamber of Commerce as well. So I think I speak for all of us. Very excited to see that, and they had a lot of discussion about the holiday and festivities, both Halloween and Christmas. So more to come there. And I'm not sure if John, you had opportunity to discuss with the other council members that weren't at Friday's meeting related to the Scarecrow contest and the decision that was made by council member Mackey and Spokely on who's gonna make who's Scarecrow for each other. But
I didn't make that decision. I suggested it.
This isn't on the agenda, but we'll just bring it up. So the downtown business associations are having a scarecrow contest. Well, actually, just a whole scarecrow display. And we're going to do something for City Hall here. And one of the ideas was that we would have scarecrows of all the council members. So one suggestion was that the council members could do their own. Or we could put everybody's name in a hat and assign it to other council members would have to build a scarecrow of one of their colleagues on the council. So it's really up to the council. I can tell you that we're going to get some of the really nice sacks that help with the scarecrow. But anyway, it's up to the council what you want to do. But we want to do something fun.
But more to come. I know he'll report out. That was a good topic of discussion. And, I kind of bring this up and kind of bring the frivolity to, one of the things that Old Town and Downtown are trying to do is provide a certain level of normalcy for our community and bridge, again, an attempt to kind of, bring consistency across town in a lighthearted way that also kind of makes us all proud of ours. So they've got a lot of ideas for Christmas as well, but John, I'll look forward to the rules on the city council scarecrow and city staff scarecrow display that we'll be working on here in the days to come. So
good luck, John.
Lastly, the Fire Safe Council did meet. I do think Councilmember Mackey might have been on. I only was able to join in for a tidbit here and there. Lots of discussion continued on the shaded fuel break, the chipper program. And I briefly brought this up at the top, but when I was on the council meeting, this was the focus, and that is the red flag warning program and really wanting to do more in that space, not just in the public education piece. But one of the items that I had brought to the Fire Safe Council a while back under the last police chief, public safety chief, was this idea of adding an ordinance related to parking restrictions on red flag warning days. And so, I'll just mention to this group, I think the Fire Safe Council is eager to do it. I think the chief is supportive of doing it. It's just a matter of how do we accomplish everything with one fire chief and with limited staffing. But I think there needs to be continued support. I reached out to the chief. I have some ideas on how to maybe help get the Fire Safe Council motivated to working on this process while the city still tries to get a few other items accomplished before it. But lots and lots of discussion. Councilwoman Mackey, you were there. Anything of note that maybe I didn't mention?
I can't think of anything right now, Daniel. It's a lot of the same, but you covered the important parts.
And Fire Safe Council meetings are kind of like soap operas. You can miss a couple and then come back to the third one. And that's no disrespect because we have a lot of really good discussions, but a lot of the issues are ongoing. And I think that I'll just close it with this item that, we are never going to be done with solving our fire problem in Auburn. And so some of the discussions on how do we do more, how do we get more communities involved, how do we address Union Pacific has continued to be one. And so, I encourage all of you to, join in if you want. And again, I think it's just a matter of taking this very enthusiastic, energetic group and keeping them going into helping us really reduce our fire threat. So it was no disrespect, my analogy, but that is kind of what it's like. But Councilwoman Mackey, go ahead.
I just want to mention one thing. They did talk about the chipper program should be going pretty soon now, within the next week or so. They have trained people to do that in-house. They're going to have their own labor force instead of contracting out. And so that should be starting pretty soon, but there's a long list of people waiting for that. So.
Great, thank you for reporting on that. There's been I know a lot of residents who are ready for that and need that. So with that, if there is nothing else from anybody, then I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting and we will talk with you all later or see you in the morning for the Methodist group. So have a good night, everybody. We'll talk to you all later.
See you in the morning. Alice speaks in the morning.